You're listening to What It's Like with Luce, a podcast highlighting ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I'm your host Lucy Norris, and on today's episode, I'm speaking with founder and creative director of French high-end streetwear brand NASASEASONs and Prospect 100, a series of youth competitions set up to find the best in their fields. Growing up in the Tumblr era, this week's guest had always been intrigued by the aesthetic and culture of his generation. What began as a collective of friends hosting parties in Paris transformed into an idea of how they could capture a moment in time and eventually a streetwear brand that would end up on the heads of Hollywood and beyond. Stitching short, snappy slogans onto caps would take over his life for the next few years, and little did he know he was in the process of building a concept that would attract the likes of Rihanna, Beyonce, Kanye West, and have his name mentioned in Vogue and Forbes, to name a few. Sharing with me how he did it from start to finish alongside his other creative projects that include work with the Rolling Stones and setting up a competition series with the judging panel that boasted Steve Wozniak, here's what it's like to be Alexandre Daillance. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me today. How I like to kick off every episode, just to give a bit of background to everyone listening, is to chat a bit about what you were like growing up in terms of what your interests were and where you found that, I suppose, artistic spark that would lead you to then create what you've created today.
So first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be there. And to answer your first question, so really when I grew up, I was really influenced by the platform Tumblr, which is kind of the ancestor now of Instagram. And I remember when I was roughly 14 years old, was probably the first time I went on Tumblr, and I kind of became addicted to it for at least 3 years. And I still go from now and then on the platform now for inspiration for design. And Tumblr was a great place at the time because there were, all people around the world that were kind of artistic or were designers or just like to create images, and or even part of the hip hop scene would have a blog on Tumblr. And I think because Tumblr was more of a website than an Instagram page, people took that more seriously, I would say. So it was it was essentially a blog. So you could have text, you could have images as well. And especially people like Virgil Abloh, who obviously now is very famous and has succeeded in his career in fashion. I started with Tumblr. And I remember following his blog called Parag's Vision at the time. So I was in 2014. He started to work with people like A$AP Rocky. He worked with Kanye already. And it was really interesting to kind of, see how they would create those images, see how hip hop would slowly merge with fashion, and really see also the growth of influence of streetwear, which already you had brands like Supreme that was founded in 1994. You had Stasi founded in 1980. But then through Tumblr and through just the internet in general, of course, you would see this brand emerge more than ever. And especially, people like Tyler, the Creator, Without Future in 2012. And, the exposure they got through the internet, through Tumblr, also helped a lot Supreme become what Supreme is today. And really the rise of Supreme is really, has really happened within past 10 years, even though Supreme has been around for more than 20 years technically. So Tumblr was a great source of inspiration. And I think I slowly transitioned to obviously Instagram. Like many people, I think I was maybe slightly more early than some people. So, and that played to my advantage, obviously, with what I did after and my brand and meeting people through Instagram as well. That helped with my career. And I think to just finish up the question as well, I had the chance to have, parents that were not working. I mean, my mother kind of worked in fashion when she was younger. My dad, not at all. But then they both had a sensibility for art and design in general. So obviously grew up with a lot of art books around, design books around me. And whenever we traveled, we had the chance to go to museums with them. And I think you can go and hate it. But in my case, I went and I think loved it most of the time. And I kind of grew that sensibility for design and curiosity for design as well. So I think overall that kind of, played a role as well in what I did, after.
You created your brand, or you started out with the concept super young. I believe you're still in high school when this all started. So can you take me back to those initial days when the idea was just floating around, you're just maybe chatting to people about it? Where did NASASEASONs come from?
So actually it all started with parties, and me and some friends from high school really wanted to do some parties in Paris, and we started. I mean, that's how we really started, and there was no real goal to make clothes at any point. So that I was, I think, 16 at the time when we did the first round of parties. So we would either rent clubs and DJ there, or we would be invited by clubs and DJ there. So it was we would call ourselves really a collective of DJs almost, and we had also a website where we would showcase, kind of like Tumblr, and I think maybe it was a Tumblr page, or it was a real website. We was a Tumblr connected to a website, but we had also a blog where we would put, in inspirational songs we like, we would put imagery we liked, but what we really did was DJing and organizing parties, and we also organized our own parties, and we kind of grew following within Paris, which I think the biggest party we had was, we had probably 1,000 attendees, which is obviously, kind of big, and for, the age we were and everything. So,
yeah.
And that helped us build that kind of like early cult following, which then played a role in launching the brand, a year and a half later. And I think kind of looking especially at Virgil Abloh, who through Bean Trail, which was a collective he had with Matthew Williams, with night creative director Givenchy, and Aaron Preston, they were DJing kind of, through Bean Trail all around the world. They would DJ as well in Paris. So me and my friends would go to these parties. We had the chance to meet Virgil, back in 2014 then, and it was a big inspiration. And I think when I saw how someone like Virgil was able to be a DJ, be a designer, be, more stuff as well, it made me want to add something to the catalog of things we're doing. And so we did one cap, which actually failed a lot. It was a big failure, but we did one cap, which I think we were in early 2015 or end of 2014. And it was just like complicated. We had to produce it in a place in Paris that was super expensive and everything, but we did a few runs. We gave it to some friends. Nothing really happened. I think just one store in Belgium, in Brussels, had the cap. And then we did another round of caps. And then that's how I came with the I Came to Break Hearts phrase, which was kind of like the idea was, looking at how caption on Instagram is so important. People try to make statements through caption on Instagram, and they're usually very short. And I've, a lot of energy in them. Sometimes I wanted to make, short statements that would be playful to wear. And I think the cap was a great canvas to put the phrases on. We did it with t-shirts, we did it with hoodies, but the caps I think was the best one to start with. And then with the caps, we eventually had the chance to work with Colette, which was this amazing store based in Paris, which was the mecca of both high fashion and streetwear.
Yeah, I love the brand. I think it's so cool what you've done with it, and so clever as well, as you're saying, just those short, punchy statements, but that makes such an impact. And so I suppose my first question within that is, it's kind of simple, but I'm curious to know why you went with a cap. How did you come to that conclusion that was the one product that you believed was going to sell more than anything else?
When you look at which item to go with, t-shirts or overdone, hoodies are overdone. I mean, I love t-shirts, I love hoodies, and I wear both of these items, obviously, like millions of people every day. But to start with one, I think it was important just to start with one product. And then the question was, what product would it be? And I think even though, a lot of brands make caps, obviously, and I didn't think we were special making caps more than t-shirt, but I thought commercially and strategically wise, I thought it was easier to break through with caps. And I think it was true, especially with that cap, which is the style of cap we chose. And still today we have this model. I think it was not too saturated. Stores like Colette, which, I would often go to it every weekend, they had caps, but they were not too good. I mean, they were okay, but there was space to make a new line of caps, definitely. And so it was a great thing. I think if I was to give an advice, to someone young, I would still say you have to go with one product at a time. And that product could be socks, for example. I think, similarly to caps, a lot of people wear socks, but it's more original to start with a brand with only socks than a brand with only t-shirts, obviously. So I think it could have been caps, it could have been socks, it could have been maybe gloves, it could have been bandanas, it could have been beanies, anything that, people buy, obviously on a not day-to-day basis, but frequently. So that's slightly more original than t-shirts and hoodies. And when I often get contacted by young people that wants to start brands, and obviously they send me the first lookbook, and it's just a lot of t-shirts, and some of the designs are great, some of the imagery and the aesthetic of the brand is great, but it's just another t-shirt in a sea of t-shirts, so it's hard to really break through with that.
obviously, then you'd got your brand into Colette, which was a big win for you guys. And then celebrities started to wear your caps. I think that Rihanna was the first one to do it. So I suppose within all of that, I'd be so curious to know your take on how you do build a brand into more of a cult following, rather, like building the story around your product so that it's not just, a cool trendy clothing line. It's more of a thing people want to be part of. How did you start transforming the image of that to make it into, a business that you're actually going to work on full time?
Mm-hmm. So exactly. So we were kind of caught by surprise when we got Rihanna wearing the caps, and that was just a few months after we launched the line with the phrases on the caps. That was probably 6 months after we launched, I think, the first one in May 2015 or June 2015. We were stuck at Colette in July 2015, and Rihanna wore the cap in November 2015. So it was really back-to-back events. In a way, we were in Vogue just a month after Rihanna. So it was like a lot of great events in a small amount of time. I think trying to make the brand a cult brand, as you mentioned, is still the goal today. So I think the work is definitely not finished on that. But I think to have, so many brands, and to go back to what I was saying before, with a lot of people DMing me with new lookbooks, new brands, you see there's no really relation between connection between one design people are making with another, and that just makes the brand weak and unrecognizable. I think our strength with NASASEASONS was to obviously have that system of phrases on the caps, and also almost all the caps have the same font. So I have a sort of like clear connection between first of all, what the brand looks like, what the design of a brand looks like, so it's recognizable easily, and also just the energy and the attitude of a brand can be felt. So you have statements like "I can't break hearts," "Almost famous," "No pictures," "I used to miss you." As you mentioned earlier, I don't remember the term you use exactly, but yeah, it's sort of cheeky, playful statements, which obviously work great with young people, but even we've seen adults wearing them and everything. And what's been amazing with the product so far is, I remember I had a chance to meet Elton John, for example, before one of his concerts, and he was saying that I gifted him one of our caps before, Almost Famous, which I thought was very famous, obviously, for someone like Elton John. And he wore the cap. I got a picture of him wearing it, which was obviously amazing. And then I met him a few weeks after, and he was saying, yeah, the products are so simple, but he loved it because, of course, it was simple and funny and playful, and it was not trying too much. And I think then you also see Beyonce, see Rihanna, you see LeBron James. Those are all very famous people, but they're very different from one another. Obviously, they're males, females, different backgrounds, different industries. They have, what makes them similar is that they're famous, but they're all very different. So I think the fact that you're able to get the interest of so many diverse people, and like many things in life, actually, the simpler thing is, the simpler something looks, the better it works. So I think that was our strength. And then I think one of the issues we faced quickly is, because the product's obviously simple in design in a way, we got a lot of copies. So Zara, Forever 21, and I think H&M as well copied some of our phrases, or copied at least the style and the attitude of our phrases. I think Brady Melville and other brands did it. So that was an issue we faced, but you have to pay the price of success sometimes like that, and we had to take measures. But it was just because we were still young, we were 18, 19, me and my friends. It was just a lot, and we were at university as well. It was just a lot to handle, to take care of, like, obviously supplying the demand. So you have all people coming to your website after Rihanna wears the product. You have stores in Japan where you have the order that needs to pass duty, so you need to call the Japanese forwarder to solve the issue. Then you have copyright issues with Zara, so you need to call a lawyer. It's expensive. So just a lot of things to work on a day-to-day basis, and you're learning how to handle what started as a passion and something for fun, throwing parties, to actually running a business with and working with obviously serious entities. Like, you work with Barney's, you work with you receive an email from Urban Outfitters who wants to work with you. Those are all obviously serious people. There's money involved, so it's both a chance to be, let's say, facing those quote unquote issues and to learn from it, but It's also it can be stressful at times, and you're always asking yourself, what could I have done better? And I think looking back now that I'm 24 years old, I said when I was 18, there's so many things I would have tried to do differently, but that's how you grow, and that's how you learn. So I'm grateful for the journey so far.
Yeah, I'm sure it's been one hell of a journey. And I think, you just managed to capture the zeitgeist so well in such a simple, effective way, which I think it's so admirable to see what you guys did. And just on that, you touched on kind of what my next question was going to be. Obviously, if people don't know, whilst this whole thing was blowing up massively for you, you were in college doing a degree in America, which I don't know how you balance the two, because when I think back to when I was doing my degree, I definitely wouldn't have been able, or wouldn't have had the discipline to. So what was that like for you when, as you said, you did have all these massive orders coming in? You were then dealing with lawyers, you were figuring out how to get yourselves into shops and negotiate all that kind of thing. How, I suppose, on a human level, were you coping with that? And what are your tips maybe to get through something that monumental that happens to you so young?
Well, the first answer I can give is that you need to be it's a cheesy answer, but you need to love what you do, and you need to be obviously very motivated, because you go to college. So I went to college in America, as you mentioned, and I was in Connecticut on a campus kind of in the middle of nowhere, and that was kind of it was not a party school, so there was not like big frats and stuff like that, like you can find in American movies. But still, you're in college, so you meet people, and you can play sport. You definitely have parties from time to time, and at the same time you're trying to have like a normal college life and meet people. Especially, I was French, so I was trying to first of all adapt to the cultural change, even though I've been to America several times before. But I was trying to adapt. I was trying to make sure I had good grades. I was on top of my classes and everything, the schoolwork, and the first few months were kind of hard, to be honest. But then, and at the same time, you have this like parallel life, quote to quote, where you want to grow a brand, and especially when you get Rihanna wearing the product, then you get contacted by Vogue. It motivates you to go a step further and to work harder. So I cannot count the number of nights where I would sleep at 3 a.m. So I would stop my schoolwork at maybe 10 p.m. then get dinner late, and then eventually maybe try to go to a party for an hour, and then go back to my dorm trying to not be too drunk, and then kind of doing the work, and then wake up, and then it's another day. It was complicated, but I was just loving the work, and when it's your own project, I think, and that's why I still have more companies right now, and I love entrepreneurship. But the fact that it's your own project, you put an extra pressure on yourself, and just to see the result of what you're achieving, it's just really motivating. But yeah, it was hard, and there are times where you just feel like you cannot handle it and it's too much. And once again, as I mentioned, there are so many things I would have done differently, and the stress to cope with schoolwork and that type of work as well jeopardize one and the other. I could have better grades if I didn't have NASASEASONS, and if I didn't go to school, I would have probably done better things with NASASEASONS. So, but I'm happy I did both, and I can't complain today.
You're kind of a serial entrepreneur at this point. You've done a few other things since NASASEASONS, and the one thing I wanted to ask you about, I know you kind of have a bit of a pseudonym in Malinsky. I don't know if that denotes your personal brand, or can you just tell me like why you use that and where that came from as well?
Yeah, exactly. So I think the Malinsky name came before actually the NASASEASONS brand. I think I always loved, I'm not a musician myself, but I always love, musician, or even can happen for designers, that, you have this alter ego name that you use for your craft. So if you're a musician, your real name is X, and then your artist name can be Y. And I think for me, I kind of knew, even though we were starting the parties, I knew I eventually wanted to do some things on my own that would be artistic related. I tried actually to make some music, but it was really bad, so I stopped quickly. But then eventually, when I thought, oh, maybe I could become, not become a designer, but do some things that are design related, and to use that name would be to kind of create a persona. And I think so many also, that's a stretch example, but when you look at people at Daft Punk who you're obviously one of the most amazing band in the world, and their duo is we're so proud in France to have them as artists. But the way they branded themselves, obviously, they have a made up name. They have the robots, so they have all the aesthetic. They have the uniform. I'm just super interested by especially musicians that kind of build my persona around them. So I try to do that for me as well early on, even though I was not doing really any or releasing anything, but I'm happy I did. And I think I kind of dissociate maybe sometimes my Alexandre Daillance, which is my real first name and last name, who's more maybe the business person that's conducting that's the owner and founder of those projects, and that kind of handle the business side, because we still have a small team, so I have to do a lot of stuff obviously myself. And then Milinsky, which is more of the uniform I put on whenever I design and whenever I collaborate with people, but there's really a focus on the artistic angle of the project. So what I've done with Milinsky more concretely is over the past 2 years, I've collaborated with amazing musicians like the Rolling Stones, Paul McCartney, Guns N' Roses, Lil Wayne. So more, iconic rock bands, but also rappers like Lil Wayne, for example, also Steve Aoki. And that was kind of my way to use the skills that I've developed, in fashion and in graphic design, and kind of rework, in the case of a Rolling Stone, rework the tongue, which has been created in 1972. But then the Stones are known for changing the tongue every tour they do. So they usually ask artists, or they have asked, for example, Andy Warhol back in the 70s to remix the tongue for one of their album and tour, and then more recently artists as well. So I think to also be part of for example, for the Stones legacy, for me to work with them was really amazing. It was my first project, and then still today, this year I'm also working with a number of very famous entities that I cannot really reveal yet, but I'm super excited for them to be released. It's great, and I think especially as when you look at brands right now, whether it's a famous brand like maybe Louis Vuitton, or a brand like H&M, or even NASASEASONS, in a way, any brand is going to try to find that authenticity that they're going to build through their storytelling, through their visuals, through the product themselves. But I think what's amazing with, and these brands can succeed or not sometimes, but what I think is amazing working with artists like the Rolling Stones, that you're working with the Rolling Stones and they are the Rolling Stones. They do not need to create authenticity, because the authenticity is built by naturally by who they are and what they've achieved as an iconic rock band since their creation in the 60s. So I really love working with artists directly. And as I mentioned, I love music, but I'm not a musician. So for me to work with them, it's always really exciting. And I try to do that as much as I can. Is obviously it can be a bit complicated right now with the pandemic, as the tours are kind of postponed and so on for a couple of months and maybe years. But still, with online drops, we're able to do good things. So I think my next collaboration is actually dropping in less than a month with an iconic American rock band, for which I've been a great fan since I was young. So it's going to be a great one.
That sounds exciting. I'm excited to see who it is now. And coming off of that, you spoke about how kind of, maybe, I don't know if important is the right word to use, but the impact of having a strong persona behind a brand to kind of drive the brand forward, or almost, if you want to use musical terms, like a front man of a brand. Do you think that in this age that we're living in now, in the era of influencers, all that kind of thing, that a brand can survive without that one person driving it at the front? Or do you think that brands still have a chance if there's no face behind it?
It's a good question, but I think you can find examples of both cases. So I think definitely your questions is very relevant when you look at people like Virgil Abloh and Off-White, where obviously Off-White has been one of the biggest success in fashion since the past decade. And even if you look at Dior with Kim Jones, Dior is really not relying on Kim Jones because it's a legacy brand and it's a heritage brand, and it will always be. I think it will always be. for many years. What it is in luxury, but I think definitely this kind of like in rock and roll bands. Sorry, there's a desire to see someone really lifting the brand and be the face of it. But I think you also see brands like Aimé Doré that I started, I think 5 years ago or 4 years ago, and everybody I think knows the name of. A lot of people knows the name of a founder, and you can find the name of a founder, but the founder is not really the masterpiece of a brand. Obviously, he makes a brand amazing through its design and through the aesthetic of everything Aimé Leon Dore stands for. But people buy Aimé Leon Dore because the products are great, because the overall aesthetic and vision of a brand is great. And then he's not at the forefront of it. He has an Instagram account. He doesn't post much, and he doesn't, I think, really care to get at the forefront of it. What matters to him is for the brand to be great, and that's it. And I think that's very honorable as well. And I think it's also more strategic when you think about it, because many people finding a brand will want maybe eventually one day to find a new project and to eventually sell the project they created before. And I know what Hiroshi Fujiwara said, who's a very famous Japanese designer. He founded the brand Good Enough, I think, in the 90s, and he was trying to distance him. I mean, he was famous himself at the time, but he was trying to distance himself, from the brand as much as possible, so that the brand could survive without him later on, and that the brand was not too reliable on him as well. And I think that was a smart move from him. So I think it really, really depends what you want to brand to be, and it's just a personal choice from the founding team and from the creative director as well. But another example is Madapi. I don't know if you know the brand Madapi, but they're an amazing LA-based brand as well. They've been around for 4 years now, and I think you can easily know who the founders are. And I think it's a group of 5 young people that are roughly my age, but the brand is way more famous than the people behind it as well, and he does really well. So I think one of the biggest examples to finish up is Supreme, where a lot of people know the name of the founder is James Jebbia, but you can only find 3 photos on the internet if you type his name on Google. He never really gave interviews. He probably gave like 5 interviews in his life to the New York Times and other magazines like that. And really his goal as a owner and of Supreme and founder of Supreme is just to make sure the brand is great, and the brand is more represented by its community of skateboarders than its founder of whoever made the brand. And I think that's really honorable. I think it also makes the brand more authentic, because what you're trying to do with a brand is you're selling a dream, you're selling a vision, you're selling belonging to a community, and you want as much as possible that community to be mysterious and for the dream to be untouchable, and to kind of know that everything was built by one person can be great, I think, because obviously Virgil Abloh as a person is amazing and what he's done is very impressive. But you also want to think that what you're buying into, a t-shirt you're buying, of a cap you're buying, of a shoe you're buying, has been made by some individual that you don't know who they are and you don't know what's the background, and maybe they're amazing, maybe they're not, but just the product is amazing. That's why you're buying it, and the vision is amazing. And I think especially for Daft Punk, the universe they've created is amazing. The music is just crazy. And maybe actually if you meet the 2 guys behind Daft Punk, you'll probably hate Daft Punk, because for some reason they may be assholes, nobody really knows. But I think to protect that, to avoid that, to kind of stay mysterious, I think is one of the best recipe.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's an interesting balancing act between, exactly as you said there, allowing for a community to be created rather than maybe isolating things if you just push one person the whole time, but then also, using the advantage of having a personal brand as well. I just wanted to get your take on it because I thought it would be interesting to chat about. And so maybe you have other projects going on at the moment, but what I've seen, the most recent thing that you are getting involved in is Prospect 100. So I'd love for you to tell me more about that and about how that came about as well.
Sure. And so, so Prospect 100, we created it with 2 friends of mine that are based in the UK. One is from Belfast in North Ireland, and the other one is from Bedford near London. And the project was really born during the pandemic last year. So I think we started really in April 2020, so exactly a year ago actually. And we kind of saw, and I mean, things were kind of slowing down starting in April 2020. So the NASA was a bit slow. So I had slightly more free time than before. Same with the Magnitsky project. So I was like, I always try to keep busy. So I was asking myself, what could I do more? And I think one of the things that came up was, I've always loved discovering new talents, and I have the chance, I think, to also get some mentors when I was younger and to get the help of people. And I was always now that I'm slightly more older and I've slightly more experience and knowledge, I was trying to way to not necessarily give back, but I think support to some extent young talents that need, opportunities. I think because of the pandemic, a lot of young people were losing confidence, or they kind of didn't know what type of platform they had to show their craft and grow as artists. So we thought about it for several days, and after brainstorming, we said, why don't we do some online competitions for young people aged 25 and under? So it's going to be, high school, primary school, university age, and roughly after 25 and under in the field of music, design, innovation, and now we're doing film this year. And kind of like an X Factor in a way, but all taking place online. Very simple, free to apply for everyone. And the first thing we did was reaching out to people we know from the industry of music. The music competition was our first competition, and reached out to people like Kanye West, the guitarist of the Rolling Stones. We reached out to Guy Holmes, who was the manager of Michael Jackson. Reached out to Matame, who's a very famous now DJ group from Bergamo in Italy. Guy Gerber, Julia B from Brazil. And we ended up with having 10 amazing judges, very famous, industry leaders, industry that love the project. We're happy to take part as judges to review the applications. And I think we started kind of just in a couple of days we put together the competition. We received over 3,000 applications within 3 weeks in May 2020 from 53 different countries. So we had, countries obviously like France, from the US, the UK, Canada, but we also had, Zimbabwe, New Zealand, Colombia, so really diverse group of countries. And we're doing this year our second competition for music. Actually, right now the application just closed, and we had 82 different countries this year.
Wow!
So we almost tripled the number of countries represented. The number of applications as well, was higher. And it's just been an amazing journey. Then we did also a competition of design, obviously, as you know, I love design. And we had the chance at the founder of Colette to be on the judging panel. So it was kind of full circle for me to have her also involved in this project as well. We had Sean Watherspoon, the sneaker designer. We had Jeff Staple. We had Shane Avley who works with A$AP Rocky. So each time we have a chance to get an amazing judging panel. And what was really also important for us, obviously, was to reward the winners, not only the winners, but everyone actually. And I think for the winners, we were able to get each time mentorships. So for music, for example, the winner got mentorship with the manager of Michael Jackson, and they recorded an amazing song together. And now the song has been doing really well. It was at the radio more recently. With the design competition, which was sneaker based, we were able to offer mentorship at Pencil Design Academy, which was it's actually the biggest sneaker design academy in the world. It's based in Portland, near of Beaverton Nike campus on the West Coast in America. And for the innovation competition, the head judge was Steve Wozniak, the founder of Apple, which was crazy.
That's so cool.
It was just like a dream to have him involved. And we emailed him. We found his personal email address. We emailed him, and the day before the competition started, we got an answer back. He was saying, "Yeah, I love the projects. I want to get involved." He offered to be the head judge, and he offered to mentor all of the finalists, which was really a dream. The final was on Zoom. So it was kind of amazing to see how fast the project grew. It was amazing to see the support we got from so many famous people, obviously, because without them, the project would not have had that exposure. And it was also obviously the most rewarding was to see just the excitement of so many young people that were, like many people around the world from an industry, just kind of, down and depressed and trying to find ways to, get exposure of their craft and of their music, of their design, of whatever they were doing. And just the number of feedback and number of messages we received was really rewarding for us during that period as well. And that's why now what we're doing this year, and we started with music, but we're going to start as well with design, then innovation and film again this year, is partnering with amazing companies. And I cannot reveal the name right now, but we're starting to partner with companies with design in a couple of weeks to provide even more prizes to all the participants, and to just grow the professionalism of the competition. And we've actually been contacted by a major TV channel to try to turn the competition into a TV show. So that might be the next step of what we're doing. And they're one of the biggest TV channel in the world. So that might be really exciting for us. And it was not a route that we imagine at all, but like many things in life, you just start and then eventually you kind of see the options you have, and if you do things right, you naturally have some good options in front of you. So that's been really exciting. I'm super glad I'm part of it, and it's like kind of the extension of what I'm doing as well with NASASEASONS, with Malinsky, but in a different capacity. And once again, to meet those young talents is super rewarding, and we hope we'll find the next Billie Eilish. We hope we'll find the next Virgil Abloh. We hope we'll find the next Martin Scorsese. So, and if that's the case, that's the biggest reward in the world, of course.
Yeah, well, it definitely seems like it has the potential to find that kind of caliber of people. And I think it's such an incredible initiative, especially since, as you mentioned, the pandemic hit the creative industry so hard. And it was so nice to just see, this opportunity being given to people. And as you said, you got so many amazing people involved so fast. So yeah, congrats on that. And that's so cool that a TV station came to you. You must be the busiest person I've ever spoke to, listening to everything that you have going on. I don't know how you fit it all in, but are you going to continue to juggle everything? Do you think you'll go down one avenue more than the others, or what are your feelings on your next steps with all of this?
I think what's really it's like, since I've gotten a bit of success with NASASEASONS, suddenly you get a lot of projects, obviously people coming to you and offering to do stuff, and I actually tried a lot of stuff, but that didn't really happen eventually. But like many things in life, you try and you kind of see where this can go, and I was really open-minded on what I was capable of doing. And also when you're young, you feel like the time is infinite, you have so many time, and you'll be able to squeeze everything in basically. And but the truth is that's not the case. So it's a really good question, and what I learned over the past especially months, but several years now, is that you can only be great at a couple of things. And right now, one of my focus is to really determine how I want to spend my time. And I think, with NASASEASONS already, with Malinsky products already, which are growing, and with Prospect 100, which I've been super happy to be part of this project, and it's going really fast. I think that's already plenty for me for the next couple of years, if things goes well. So I'm really going to focus on these and try to make sure it can go, it can become the best thing can be. And there's no limit to what these projects can become. So I think the goal is to, instead of having more stuff, just focusing on and increasing their exposure and what they can become. But always open-minded to hear more stuff. And definitely one thing I love to do is meet more people. And when you meet more people, obviously you may be in front of great products as well. So always be ready to jump on something if that makes sense, and if you have the time.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely going to be so busy with all of these things going on. But as you said, the potential is endless with all of them. So I'm excited to see what comes of it all. And so you mentioned there, and it's very clear to anyone listening throughout the course of the conversation, you have experienced massive success at such a young age. So I'm curious to know if you do right now have a personal definition of what the word success means to you, or if you feel like you're still kind of trying to figure that out. But yeah, what's your thoughts on the word success and that definition?
It's a tricky question. I think it's these different type of successes. People might think success is financial. Some people might think success is more happiness and sense of fulfillment. I think for me, and the truth, I think that at the end of the day, that's still the case for everyone. You have to find a bit of both. You need a bit to make money to live your life and pay your bills, but you also need to have a sense of fulfillment and that you're happy with the work you're doing. Otherwise, it's going to be miserable, even though you're making money. So I think for me, it's trying to find the right balance between both. And I think so far it's been decent trying to do both, but to be very frank with you, now that I left university, I'm trying to, consider slightly more of the financial side of it. But, if I'm not happy with something, I'm not going to do it, even if I can make money. So once again, it's a balance, definitely trying to find the middle ground. And even when I'm doing a collaboration with Malinsky, I'm always collaborating. I'm never doing a Malinsky product by itself. It's always a collaboration with someone. So obviously when I do a product with those stones need to approve the product. So it's always a balance. It's a compromise sometimes, but hopefully it's not the case, but it's a compromise between what they roughly trying to see and what I'm trying to bring to them from my aesthetic, my inspiration, my influences that are very personal to me. But yeah, it's a balance with a lot of things, you know.
Yeah, for sure. It's a hard one, I think. And I'm not sure if, anyone ever kind of comes across their perfect definition of it. But yeah, I feel like it's something that moves all the time. But it's interesting to hear your take on it. And then to wrap everything up, if I put your 10-year-old self in front of you now, already having achieved so much with so much more to come on the way, what's the biggest piece of advice if you could just say one thing to that 10-year-old self moving forward in his life?
Just do
Another
it.
hard one to end it.
No, just do it. Nike slogan. I think it's one of the best slogans in the world. I think you just have to just trust your guts and don't be. I think I was really fortunate to be naive when I was younger, and just in the sense that I was trying to, for example, when we did the first cap, which I told you was actually a really bad design, I was still contacting all the most famous stores in the world to try to get stock. We eventually got one stock, I told you, in Brussels. We got really lucky. But I think that sense of naivety that, no matter what, you're going to, without really overthinking, you're gonna email people, try to make the most of it, trying to be in the best magazine, the best stores, the best everything, even though maybe you don't deserve it. That's exactly the mentality one needs to have. You don't overthink, just run, and then obviously you'll make mistakes, but you'll learn from the mistakes, and the next time you do it, you will be a little better. The next time you do it, you will be a little better, and then hopefully by the time you're a certain age, you'll make the perfect product that deserves all the recognition and all the applause. So yeah, keep that naivety, and hopefully I'll still be a bit naive like that when I'm 80 years old, and that's probably the best advice I can give.
Well, thank you so much. It's been so interesting chatting with you. I've enjoyed this chat so much. I feel like I've learned so much from you as well. So I just want to say thank you so much again for giving up your evening to share your wisdom with all of us. It's been great.
Thanks so much for having me, and congratulations to you. I've listened to a couple of your podcasts on Spotify. I have to send me the link. It's really impressive. I love people that have initiatives like that, and it's really useful for people that are listening to everything, to all the podcasts you're doing, to learn from other people, and your enthusiasm is a blessing. Thanks so much for doing what you do.
Thank you so much for listening, and as always, please rate, share, and leave a comment if you like what you hear. And don't forget to follow @WhatIt'sLikePod on Instagram and Facebook. To find out more about Alexandre and his work, visit the links provided in the show notes. I'll be back next week with more inspiring stories, but for now, this has been What It's Like with Luce.